The camera's red light blinked to life, and the studio air turned electric, tight with tension, humming with anticipation like a storm brewing just out of sight. You could almost taste the anxiety in the room. It was metallic, like blood in your mouth. A hush fell over the small crowd gathered in Studio 7B of New York's Wexel News Tower, as if the entire world was collectively holding its breath. Then came the voice, low, calm, deliberate. "Tonight, I'm going to expose John Kennedy." The words cut through the silence like a scalpel. All eyes turned to Zohran Malik, tall, angular, with deep, set eyes that seemed to hold a lifetime of storms. He didn't blink as he said it. His fingers rested still on the edge of the news desk, knuckles white, jaw clenched. In the shadows, behind the cameras and stage lights, producers froze. Viewers at home paused mid-bite, mid-thought, mid-scroll. The airwaves crackled with the weight of something irreversible. Exactly 12 seconds later, everything changed. But to understand what happened, to really feel it, you have to start much earlier. Zohran Malik was never meant for television. Born to immigrants in Queens, New York, he grew up in a third-floor walk-up with windows that barely opened and a fire escape that doubled as a clothesline. His father was a cab driver, a quiet man with calloused hands and a limp from a construction injury, and his mother, a school janitor who worked nights and taught Zohran how to read using torn paperbacks from Goodwill. By 16, Zohran was writing editorials for his high school paper, furious essays about city corruption and housing injustice, signing them anonymously as Z. He was a firebrand with a journalist's heart and a poet's pen, and he believed that truth was not just power, it was salvation. But truth, he learned, was dangerous. At 22, while freelancing for an indie news outlet, Zohran uncovered a small financial scandal in the office of then Congressman James Alderman. He published it online, no big platform, no lawyers, just raw facts and nerve. 3 days later, his apartment was broken into. His laptop gone. No police report ever went anywhere. It was a warning. Still, he didn't stop, and that's what brought him to Wexel. After years in the trenches of investigative journalism, he was offered a primetime slot to host Midnight Signal, a gritty late-night current affairs show. He took it reluctantly because it gave him a platform. But Zohran always knew, platforms are cages if you're not careful. And then there was John Kennedy, no relation to the president, though the name didn't hurt his political image. He was a sleek, silver-haired senator from Colorado with charisma that dripped like honey. Kennedy had it all: the charm, the smile, the endorsements. A rising star, whispered to be a sure candidate for the presidency in 2028. To the public, he was golden. To Zohran, he was poison. They met once at a charity gala in D.C. 5 years before the night everything went to hell. Zohran, still an up-and-coming name, was covering the event. Kennedy noticed him, came over, charming and confident, extended a hand and said, "You've got a good head. Use it wisely." That night, Zohran watched Kennedy laugh with oil lobbyists, slip into back rooms with known corporate executives, and avoid every journalist's questions with the grace of a dancer. Something in Zohran's gut twisted, the way it always did when the truth was being painted over with pretty lies. And so, over the next few years, he watched, listened, dug, quietly, methodically. What he found wouldn't just ruin Kennedy. It would burn everything down. The first subplot in this storm, Ava Sinclair. She was Zohran's producer, fierce, brilliant, and maybe the only person on earth who could argue with him and win. They had history, not the romantic kind, though it once almost veered that way. No, theirs was a deeper, more tangled connection. Ava had been a whistleblower at her former job, exposed workplace discrimination at a major network. lost everything, and clawed her way back through sheer talent. She was the only one Zohran trusted with the Kennedy files. They spent months combing through encrypted emails, voice memos, photographs. What they uncovered was staggering: insider trading, backdoor deals, payoffs disguised as donations. But the real bombshell, the one that chilled Zohran's spine, was a video, grainy footage, a private military contractor meeting in Dubai. Kennedy laughing, shaking hands with men who had funded destabilization campaigns in West Africa, conflicts that had displaced thousands. Wars indirectly ignited for profit. It was enough to end his career, maybe even land him in prison. But here's where the second subplot enters: Zohran's brother, Imran. Imran was a software engineer in California, and unlike Zohran, he believed in keeping your head down. He had a wife, 2 kids, and a mortgage, and recently he'd been contacted by people he wouldn't name. People warning him to tell his brother to back off. When Imran told Zohran this, his voice trembled. "They know where my kids go to school, Z. You're not playing with paper anymore. This is fire." Zohran almost pulled the plug that night. But then the footage of a refugee camp in Mali hit the news: burned out, children missing, bodies unburied. He looked at Ava. "We air it." Back to that night, the studio was at capacity. Security was doubled. No one knew exactly what Zohran planned to reveal, only that it involved Senator Kennedy and that it would be explosive. Kennedy's team had issued a last-minute cease and desist, but Wexel's legal department held the line barely. The red light came on, and Zohran spoke those words: "Tonight, I'm going to expose John Kennedy." Viewers around the country leaned forward. Ava, watching from the booth, nodded once the signal. He reached for the tablet on the desk, prepared to play the video, his hands shaking just slightly. Then, 12 seconds after those words, the screen behind him exploded in static, the feed cut, everything went black. In the control room, screams, panels went dead. Avi slammed her headset. What the hell just happened? The network had been hacked. Not just the show, the entire station. Emergency backups didn't respond. For 43 seconds, millions of viewers saw nothing but a blank screen. Then a new message appeared, plain white text on black. "This is your first and only warning." By the time the broadcast returned, Zohran was gone from the desk. Security had pulled him mid-segment under orders from the top. The show never aired again. The aftermath was a mess. Mainstream media chalked it up to technical failure. Wexel claimed it had parted ways with Zohran due to editorial differences. But online, the truth leaked like a broken faucet. Clips, snippets, redacted emails that somehow made it to whistleblower sites. Ava uploaded what she could, encrypted and anonymized. The footage of Kennedy in Dubai surfaced on an obscure server, viewed by only a few thousand at first. But the truth has a way of crawling out, even under rubble. A month later, an independent tribunal launched an inquiry. Kennedy denied everything, but the seed was planted. Investigations snowballed. By spring, international journalists were swarming Dubai. By fall, Kennedy withdrew from the presidential race. He resigned from the Senate the following year. But that wasn't the real ending. The real ending was quieter. Zohran never went back to television. He lives now in the Hudson Valley, writing long-form articles under different names, publishing through platforms that still value truth over spectacle. He and Ava talk sometimes, never about what happened, just about where to go next. Imran moved his family abroad. Safe now, quiet, and the video, it still circulates, not viral, not flashy, but steady, shared in classrooms, activist networks, truth forums, It's become something else now, a symbol, a flickering reminder that sometimes the biggest revelations don't arrive with applause, but with silence. Black screens, empty airwaves, and the undeniable echo of a voice saying, "I'm going to expose John Kennedy," the lesson. Truth is never convenient, it's rarely safe, and it almost never arrives when we want it to, but when it comes, it doesn't knock, it shatters.